right? So David asterisk, hit enter, there you go. Now, I'm not done yet, because this type of graph, this overlay graph, is obscuring things below it, and I don't really like that. So I can change it by going to the action menu here, this little cog wheel. If I click on that, I can go to customize display, and I'll have a lot of options. But the ones I need are stack, that'll work. And just for fun, I like using a black background because it pops to me a lot more. You can't see the grid lines quite as easily, but it really pops.
Now we'll take a second and look. Here are my class notes that I just had open for you. So here are the same notes that I brought over from my desktop. Here are those same, where I've got English, Greek, transliteration, and Hebrew, all of it right there. I've got the full table of contents. I really like user tools. User tools and papers have some overlap. I tend to use user tools more for the kind of stuff that I do, but different people will do different things. So whatever you want to use. And, again, this is a nice little table of contents, but, I can tap there and it takes me right to that section. So it's really wonderful to be able to. I wish that I had the time. I would have to take 2 or 3 weeks off to take all my old class notes that are in Word files and make them into capable Accordance user tools so that I could have them fully searchable and integrated into everything that I'm doing.
So with the text browser tab, what will happen is it opens up a text browser that will give me every Bible text that I have in accordance that has Ruth 1:6, and it'll show me all of those. And so it gives me all my Hebrew text, it gives me all my Greek text and my English text and so on. By the way, one really helpful trick. Right now, this text is so large that I can only see a couple of panels. I could reduce the size of the text, right, for each pane, but who wants to do that for every single one of those panes, right? So what I'm going to do is a little known trick. I'm going to hold down the Option key, that's on Mac, or the Alt key on Windows, and click the text sizing button in any one of the panes. And notice all of the panes reduce in size.
But what's fascinating with the scrolls is the issues they raise are still with us today. What is righteousness? How do you become righteous before God? These are issues that people are concerned about today just as much as the early Christian believers were, or just as much as the inhabitants of Qumran were believed. What brings righteousness? When will Messiah come? Christians say that Messiah, both Jewish community and the Christian community say Messiah is still going to come in the future. At least most conservative Christians and conservative Jewish believers, Jewish Orthodox Jews believe that when is Messiah coming? What about the big mess in the world? What about the corruption that we see in the world? These are issues still around today. And the scrolls tried to deal with those issues, and this is why the scrolls matter.
Hovering over that is going to show you the magnifying glass, and it's going to tell you what clicking will do. It's going to open up this website. So Accordance, and if you haven't seen this, it's worth checking out. Accordance has its own in-app web browser. You can type in any web address here. You could type in accordance.com, accordancebible.com, or whatever. But I've selected this Revised Common Lectionary site, and so I can have it inside my app, which helps minimize distractions. And another really cool thing is that Accordance knows that these are Bible references, and so even though this is the internet, it's the World Wide Web, Accordance in the instant details where I would expect to see verses is showing me what those verses are. Now, this website does it on its own. If you were to just go to a standalone web browser, there's something similar that this website does, but it's really nice having it integrated into Accordance so that now when I click on Luke 18:9 through 14, I'm not taken to another part of this page. I'm taken to my text in Accordance.
I underline called, and then I point. That arrow didn't work. I'm going to draw a line and then add an arrowhead to it. And now called always points to gathered no matter where they are. Now the thing about this is algorithmic. If you draw a bunch of junk, it says, hey, I have no idea what you drew. I can't turn it into that. What we support are lines, arcs, ellipses, squares, arrows. Those are the types of shapes we want. You can't write on your text. You can't say hello or wow, an amazing thing or anything else like that. And you can't draw a smiley face or something like that. But you can circle, box, connect words. And by the way, if you ever request, say, hey, here's a shape. I love drawing triangles. I really want a triangle. We can probably add this easy support for a triangle. And at the end of the day, if you draw something that sort of looks like a box but don't really know, that's a terrible box. Okay, it thought that was close enough to be in a line. It does its best. You can always undo and actually say, you know what, that's a way better drawn box. And look at that box. All right.
We're talking about exegesis. You can do exegesis and then deliver it orally as a sermon. You can write out an outline. You can have notes, or you can turn in a formal research paper for academic credit. I mean, whatever it is we're talking about, the exegetical task is the same. Now, there are two things that are involved in exegesis. The first one is obvious, and that's knowing the original language. Now, if you don't know the original language very well, you know, there are some crutches, there are some helps that you can use, interlinears, things like that. This is where Accordance software is so helpful too. You can have the Greek New Testament text right on the screen in front of you, and you have the cursor and you move it around and you get instant details, instant parsing, a gloss that explains to you what it means. That really helps. Same thing with the Hebrew. You can do it with the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Old Testament, and all other language modules that Accordance makes available. So anyway, the first important thing about being able to do exegesis is to know the original languages and just be aware of them. And hopefully, you know, you'll study them and you'll get to the point where you're proficient with them and can make use of them in doing your exegesis. The second thing, and that's newish to a lot of people, and that's what you could call the extra biblical languages, or the extra biblical texts and languages. That can get you into other languages like Syriac and Coptic. But even if you can only access these other texts in English translation, the fact is you need to know about them. And I want to walk through them with you and then talk about how some of these extra biblical texts can shed important light on the biblical text. Now, I'm going to mostly reference New Testament. That's what we're mostly going to talk about. That's probably what most of you want to know about. But a lot of what I'm saying here applies to Old Testament interpretation too.